My name is Myra, and I am 18 years old. I live in Silver Lake, a small town where everyone seems to know everyone else. The sun sets gorgeous around the lake, casting beautiful reflections over the water. It is the kind of place where you would expect everything to be peaceful and calm. However, I have not been living a peaceful life for quite some time. In fact, my life has been more of a battleground than a serene paradise. My story is a long one, jarring and tumultuous, teetering on the edge of betrayal, friendship, and ultimately revenge. I used to think that friendships were supposed to be built on trust and respect. They should be safe havens, a shoulder to lean on when things get tough. But back in 10th grade, I found myself trapped in one of the most toxic friendships imaginable with a girl I will call JJ, and I were inseparable for a while, or at least that is how it felt at the beginning. We shared secrets, laughed together, and spent many late nights walking along the lake, dreaming of our futures. However, the tight-knit bond we once had soon unraveled before my eyes. I still remember the fight we had that shattered everything. It was a petty argument over misunderstandings, typical teenage drama that should have blown over. However, things escalated quickly when Jay logged into my Snapchat account without my permission, a violation that still sends shivers down my spine every time I think about it. She read through my messages and had the audacity to confront me about what I had said to other people the day after, completely ignoring the fact that she had invaded my privacy. I remember shaking my head, trying to make her see the fallacy in her actions, but she was not having any of it. Jay twisted everything to suit her narrative, and instead of admitting her wrongdoing, she chose to play the victim. It was infuriating. One by one, our mutual friends started to distance themselves from her, realizing how toxic she was. But Jay remained convinced that she was in the right, wandering around school like she was royalty, while I stared at the ground trying not to fall apart in front of others. That Halloween, she decided to stir the pot one last time by spinning a twisted tale to an old friend of mine. She portrayed me as the villain, a bad friend who had somehow mistreated her. I felt like I was trapped in an episode of a soap opera, filled with drama and deceit, while my life was disintegrating silently around me. Fast forward to our senior year. The end of high school was approaching, and graduation loomed on the horizon. With graduation like a shining beacon, I thought maybe this nightmare was finally coming to an end. But then I heard something that changed everything. One of my friends came to me, panic written all over her face, and gasped that Jay had been overheard saying she was planning to confront me on the last day of school. A lump formed in my throat as disbelief washed over me. Why was she still after me? It felt like I was living in a horror movie where the villain simply would not die. Feeling cornered, I decided it was time to take action. I rushed home and told my mom everything. She listened intently, her brow furrowed in concern as I recounted all the events leading up to this. My mom is my rock, wise beyond her years, and she advised me to inform the school counselor. She told me to stand firm, to document everything, and make it clear that I was not going to be the scapegoat for Jay's actions anymore. I took her advice and went down to the office, my heart pounding with dread, the anger boiling in my veins. It was time to reclaim my narrative. The next day, I found myself sitting in the principal's office facing Jay, the girl who had invaded my most private moments and turned my friends against me. Our coordinator explained the situation to the principal, detailing how Jay had planned to pick a fight and what I had heard. When Jay realized I had spilled the beans, her facade started to crack. She squeaked me and began emoting, clutching at her head, insisting that she had never said anything remotely sinister. I watched her, my heart pounding. The anger I had felt all those years bubbled up, and my voice came out steady as I confronted her. "You think I would tell the principal just to ruin you? I am here to protect myself. Jay, you know exactly what you did." The principal's gaze shifted between us, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. Jay shot daggers at me with her eyes, but I held my ground, waiting for the moment of truth. After some back and forth, Jay finally confessed. She admitted to saying, "On the last day of exams, I am going to blow off steam in front of anyone in my way once I guarantee my file." And it felt like a tidal wave crashing down. The pressure I felt lifted for the first time. The principal wasted no time in outlining what this meant. Anything that might happen during that eventful last day would always be pinned on her, regardless of the actual circumstances. It felt like I had just pulled down the curtain on a grand performance, exposing Jay for who she truly was, and I could see the death of her proud persona as she broke down the moment she stepped out of the office. It was a pivotal moment in my life. and surprisingly, a friend of mine had been lingering outside the office, overhearing everything unfold. She rushed toward me, clearly furious, and began to lash out at Jay from afar, unleashing a storm of insults that I wished I could have echoed myself but never dared to say out loud. "You are a horrible person, Jay. How could you treat Myra like that?" The fire in her words ignited something within me. I was not alone anymore, no longer just a black mark in Jay's twisted story. Finally feeling validated, I embraced my friend, appreciating how she saw through Jay's lies with eyes that were clear and sincere. For the first time in years, I felt victory surge through my veins. However, I had still to face Jay one last time. Graduation day unfolded in waves of excitement and tension. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation, but I felt a knot of anxiety clenching my stomach tight as I waited for the ceremony to begin. I knew Jay would be there, and even with the power I had reclaimed, fear brewed deep within me. Would she come after me? Would she try to ruin my day? Despite what had happened, the thought lingered, and I felt like an actor in a Shakespearean drama, tragedy looming over my head. The ceremony went smoothly, a blur of caps being tossed into the air and laughter echoing in the field. As I stood with my friends, pride swelling within me, I spotted Jay standing across the field. She was with a group of girls, and the way they glared at me made it clear they had concocted another scheme. My heart raced, but I refused to let fear conquer me again. This day was mine, our final chapter together was closing, and I would not let her steal that from me. After the ceremony, as everyone began to disperse, I finally decided I would confront her once and for all. I marched over to where she stood, steeling my resolve. I felt my pulse quicken, and all those years of resentment clashed inside me, demanding to be let loose. Coming face to face with her felt surreal. Here was the girl who had caused so much turbulence in my life, the villain in my story, and yet there she stood, looking almost fragile under the weight of everything she had done. "Jay," I said, my voice steady. "I wanted the last few weeks of school to be a time of celebration, yet you chose to undermine everything. You always made it seem like I was the bad guy, but I am not afraid of you anymore. I am free of your chains." I watched her expression shift from surprise to anger, but I pressed on. "You might try to manipulate people into believing what you want, but it stops here. You will not get to ruin anyone's life anymore." I turned to leave, and as I did, I noticed the stunned silence surrounding us. It felt like the world unraveled for a moment, exposing the raw truth. A few students had paused, listening to our confrontation, and in an instant, the whispers spread among the crowd. I could see the shift as students began to look at Jay differently, pity replacing their earlier fears. This time, as I walked away, leading my friends away from the chaos, I felt light. The weight of her toxicity had finally lifted, and while the stings of past hurts lingered, my heart felt free from captivity. I had grown so much during this tumultuous chapter of my life. I had learned resilience in the face of adversity, strength when I had felt weak. By protecting myself, I had not only conquered my greatest fear but had also found my voice. Months later, as graduation faded into a memory, I sat by Silver Lake, reflecting on everything that had happened. I had moved on, making new friendships rooted in honesty and kindness. Every ripple in the water sparkled, reminding me that sometimes the best revenge is living well. As I sat there savoring the moment, I realized that my journey was not simply about retaliating against Jay, but rather about rediscovering myself in the process. In breaking free from the chains of a toxic friendship, I found empowerment and clarity, shaping me into who I am today. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting brilliant hues on the lake, signaling the dawn of a new chapter where I would not just survive, but thrive.